It started in the divine realm. Morath, the man who murdered Kaito's parents, who harvested thousands of souls, who devoted 40 years to the void's destructive nature, swallowed the concentrated essence of 10,000 years of madness, and became something beyond any living thing. Pure oblivion, not a being, not a force, an absence, a hunger without a mind, a void without a sovereign, consumption without purpose or limit, and it was eating reality. In the first 60 seconds after Morath's transformation, the Oblivion consumed 3% of the divine realm. In the second 60 seconds, 7%. It was accelerating, growing faster as it ate more. Each piece of consumed reality feeding the hunger, making it larger, making it faster, making it more. At the current rate of expansion, the divine realm would be gone in hours. The mortal realm, days. All of existence, weeks. And then there would be nothing. Not darkness, not silence, not even emptiness. Nothing. The absence of absence. The end of the concept of ending. Oblivion. It's not alive, the goddess of wisdom said, her analytical mind working even as reality died around her. That's the problem. There's no consciousness to reason with, no mind to attack, no soul to reach. Morath is gone, consumed by his own transformation. What remains is pure process, consumption without thought. Can it be contained? Seraphiel asked. With what? It eats divine seals, it eats barriers, it eats the concept of containment. You cannot cage something that unmakes cages. Can it be destroyed? You cannot destroy absence. You cannot kill nothing. Every attack we throw at it becomes fuel. Energy feeds it, matter feeds it, even the void feeds it. Every eye turned to Kaito. Kaito, my power cannot touch it. Creation and oblivion volatile. They cancel each other out. Kazuki, that's because you're trying to fight it as the void. Oblivion isn't the void. It's what happens when the void has nothing left to be. Kazuki spoke. His voice was different now. Cracked, aged, human. No longer the thundering declaration of a 10,000-year-old monster. Just an old man who understood the darkness better than anyone alive. The void is potential, Kazuki continued. Oblivion is the opposite, the absence of potential, the state where nothing can exist, not even possibility itself. Then how do we stop it? You can't fight it from outside. You have to go into the oblivion itself, into the nothingness. That's suicide, Arya said sharply. Yes. For anyone who isn't the Void Sovereign, all eyes on Kaito. Again. Inside the Oblivion, at its center, there should be a core. The last fragment of Morath's consciousness. The spark that started the chain reaction. It's not alive, but it's the origin point. The seed of nothingness. And if I reach it, you fill it. You pour creation into the heart of uncreation. Potential into the void of potential. You give oblivion something it has never had. What? A reason to exist as something other than hunger. Kaito, what happens to me if I go in? What happens to me if I go in? The silence that followed was answer enough. The oblivion will try to unmake you, Kazuki said quietly. Not consume, unmake. Erase you from existence, your body, your mind, your memories, your identity. Everything that makes you Kaito Yamamoto, stripped away layer by layer. Can I survive that? I don't know. No one has ever entered pure oblivion and returned. The creative void should protect you, partially. But the deeper you go, the more of yourself you'll lose. And if I lose everything before I reach the core, then you become part of the oblivion, and it gains the power of the Void Sovereign, and everything ends faster. Kaito closed his eyes. So either I save everything, or I destroy everything faster. Yes, great, no pressure. They had hours, maybe less. Kaito spent them the only way that mattered, with his family. Kazuki, I wish I could go with you. Kaito, you're too weak. The oblivion would consume you in seconds. Kazuki, I know. I missed everything. Your father growing up, your mother, you. I missed all of it because of my arrogance. Kaito, you sent me the memory, the truth about the void. Without that, I would have become you. Kazuki, or worse. Kaito, or worse, but I didn't. Because somewhere under 10,000 years of madness, you were still fighting for me. For a grandson you'd never met. Kazuki was quiet for a long moment. Your father, he was brave. So brave. When I felt him at the prison, strengthening the seals, I was too mad to understand what he was doing. Too consumed to recognize my own grandson's grandson. Great-grandson. Yes, the bloodline math gets confusing after a few millennia. Kaito almost smiled. When this is over, if I come back, will you tell me about them? My parents? What they were like before I was born? What my father was like as a child? Kazuki's eyes, human, brown, tired, glistened. Every story, every memory, I'll tell you everything I have. Promise? I promise, on the void itself, on the blood we share, on 10,000 years of debt I can never repay. Then I have something to come back to. Kazuki gripped his grandson's shoulder. You always did, Kaito. You just didn't know it yet. Yuki, I spent 10,000 years waiting for you. Don't you dare make it meaningless by not coming back. Kaito, no guilt trips. We talked about this. Yuki, that's not guilt. That's a direct order from your teacher. Kaito, I thought we were past formalities. Yuki, we are, which is why I can also say this. I love you, Kaito, not as a student, not as a project, not as the culmination of a 10,000-year plan, as a person, as family. Kaito, I love you too, Yuki, even when you're being manipulative. Yuki, I prefer strategically emotional. Ren, I should be going with you. Kaito, you don't have powers, Ren. Ren, I have a sword. Kaito, you'd be erased from existence in the first 10 seconds. Ren, then I'd buy you 10 seconds. I've done the math before. 4 minutes against a corrupted god. 10 seconds against oblivion. I'm consistent. Kaito, stay here. Protect the others. When I go in, the oblivion might lash out. They'll need someone willing to stand in front of it. Ren, a powerless human standing in front of oblivion. Sounds about right. Kaito, Ren, yeah? Kaito, you were never powerless. You just didn't know what real power was. Now you do. Ren, don't die in there, Kaito. I still owe you 3 years of apologies. Kaito, then you better think of something good while I'm gone. And then there was Arya, the girl who had warned him about Seraphil when no one else would, who had told him bloodlines aren't destinies, who had sat for 12 hours pouring her ice energy into his transformation, refusing to let him dissolve, who had been his anchor when infinity tried to swallow him whole. He didn't know what to say. For the full time in this entire journey, the boy who had faced gods, defied destiny, and broken reality didn't have words. Arya, you're doing that thing again! Kaito, suffering alone? Arya, no, trying to find the perfect thing to say when you should just say the true thing. Kaito, the true thing is that I'm terrified. Arya, I know. Kaito, not of dying, of forgetting. Kazuki said the oblivion strips away identity, memories, everything that makes me. And the thing I'm most afraid of losing." He stopped. She waited. The oblivion crept closer. "The thing I'm most afraid of losing," he said, "is you. Not you. You'll be safe out here. But the memory of you. The way your ice feels when you touch my hand. The way you called me stubborn before anyone else called me strong. The way you sat with me in the moonlight and made me believe I was worth saving. Kaito, if the oblivion takes that, if I forget what it feels like to have someone believe in me, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can create something from nothing if I've forgotten what it feels like to matter to someone." Arya stepped forward, closer than they'd ever stood. She placed both hands on his face, cool, steady, real. "Then take this with you. I'll be here, that's my promise, not to stop you, to remind you who you are." The edge of oblivion. Standing before it was like standing at the edge of a cliff that dropped into the concept of falling forever. The gods formed a corridor, channeling their remaining power to create a narrow passage through the outer layer of nothingness. It would last minutes at most. Kaito's window. Seraphiel stood at the passage entrance, his divine spear holding the corridor open through sheer force. "I cannot follow you in there," the divine champion said, "but I can hold this door as long as I exist." "How long?" "As long as it takes. I owe you that much." Kazuki stood beside Seraphiel, weakened, drained, but his hands glowed with the faintest echo of void energy, the remnants of his 10,000-year power. "I'll reinforce the corridor from this side. It's not much, but it should buy you additional minutes." "You're too weak." "I have been too weak to do the right thing for 10,000 years. Let me be too weak doing the right thing for once." Kaito looked back one last time. Arya, standing with her hands clasped, frost spreading from her feet, her eyes locked on his. Yuki, new eyes bright with fear and pride and love. Ren, sword drawn, standing guard, a powerless human who had become the bravest person Kaito had ever known. Kazuki, his grandfather, the man who broke the world and helped his grandson fix it. And the gods themselves, 7 beings of cosmic power, humbled, hopeful, watching a 17-year-old boy walk towards something they couldn't face. Kaito nodded once and stepped into nothingness. Inside the oblivion there was nothing, not silence, the absence of the concept of sound, not darkness, the absence of the concept of light, not emptiness, the absence of the concept of space. Kaito existed in a non-place that made the void look like a bustling city, and immediately he felt it, the oblivion pressing against his creative void energy, not attacking, unmaking. His shield of dark and gold power didn't shatter or crack. It simply became less, bit by bit, atom by atom, the edges of his protection dissolving into non-existence, and with it, pieces of himself. The oblivion didn't attack. It subtracted, memories first, small ones, insignificant ones, the taste of his favorite meal, the color of his childhood bedroom, the sound of rain on the academy roof. Then, larger ones, his first day at Tensho Academy, the faces of students who mocked him, the hallways he walked alone for 3 years. Then, sharper, his mother's face, his father's voice, the words that had defined his entire life. The power that is earned is always stronger, flickering like a candle in a hurricane. He was disappearing, not dying, undoing. Every step deeper cost him a piece of who he was. And somewhere ahead, impossibly far, impossibly deep, the core. Morath's last fragment, the seed of nothingness. Could he reach it before there was nothing left of him to arrive? He didn't know. He kept walking. He forgot his name. He forgot his power. He forgot why he was walking. He was no one, nothing. a shape moving through nothingness for no reason. The Oblivion had almost won, almost, because against his chest, still somehow present, still somehow real, a small crystal pulsed with cold. The crystal hummed, cold, familiar, a sensation that cut through the nothingness like a blade of ice through fog. And inside the crystal, a voice, not loud, not powerful, just present. I'll be here, that's my promise, not to stop you, to remind you who you are. He remembered cold hands on his face. He didn't remember whose hands, or when, or why, but he remembered the feeling, being seen, being believed in, being worth something to someone. That feeling became a thread, and he pulled it. His name was Kaito. He was 17 years old. He had been called worthless, and he had proven them wrong. He had been called dangerous, and he had chosen to be kind. He had been called a monster, and he had decided to create, and he was not done yet. Kaito carved a path through oblivion, not by fighting it, by creating inside it. Every step he made reality, not permanent. The oblivion consumed it behind him as fast as he made it ahead. But he stayed one step ahead, creating ground to stand on, air to breathe, space to exist in, a tunnel of something through a universe of nothing, and at the end of that tunnel, the core. He found it, the center of the oblivion, and within it, the last fragment of Morath. Not the monster, not the cult leader, not the man who murdered his parents. Something older, deeper, a memory buried so far beneath decades of fanaticism and cruelty that even Morath himself had forgotten it existed. Kaito saw Morath's beginning, not the beginning of the cult leader, the beginning of the boy. A 12-year-old child named Kai Morath, kneeling in the ruins of a village destroyed by leaked void energy from Kazuki's prison. A random eruption, a meaningless accident, the kind of thing the gods dismissed as acceptable leakage. His family, his friends, his entire world, consumed by the void, not by choice, not by malice, by negligence, by the gods' failure to properly contain their mistake, the same failure that had created the void, the same failure that had created Kaito. That boy had knelt in those ruins and made a vow. If the void could take everything, then the void should take everything. If the gods wouldn't contain their mistake, then the mistake should consume them. If existence could be so cruel, so random, so meaningless in its destruction, then existence didn't deserve to continue. Oblivion wasn't Morath's weapon, it was his grief. Infinite, consuming, purposeless grief. The grief of a child who lost everything and decided the universe should feel the same loss. And Kaito, the boy who had also lost everything, who had also been failed by gods and institutions and the people who should have protected him, understood. "Why won't it stop hurting?" the fragment whispered, a child's voice, a child's question. Kaito looked at the last piece of the man who had destroyed his family and felt something he never expected to feel. Compassion. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but the recognition that pain, unhealed, unaddressed, abandoned, becomes a monster. And the monster that Morath became was not born from evil. It was born from a world that destroyed a child and offered no one to help him heal. "It stops," Kaito said, "when someone helps you carry it." No one came. After the village, no one came. The gods didn't care. The Empire didn't care. No one. I know what it's like to be abandoned, to be told your pain doesn't matter, to scream into a world that doesn't listen. Then you understand. You understand why it all has to end. No, I understand why you wanted it to end, but ending everything doesn't stop the pain. It just makes sure no one else gets the chance to heal from theirs. Kaito extended his hand. The void isn't meant for destruction, Morath. It's meant for potential, for possibility, for giving things the chance to become what they could be. My family can't come back. Nothing I do can bring them back. But the world they loved, the world they wanted to live in, it still exists, and it's dying right now because of the pain you couldn't let go of. I can't let go. It's all I have left. Then let me give you something else. It wasn't real. Kaito couldn't resurrect the dead, couldn't change the past, couldn't undo what the void had consumed decades ago. But he could show Morath something the boy had never been shown: that his family's lives had mattered, that the world they died in still held the possibility of becoming the world they would have wanted, that their deaths, as meaningless and cruel as they were, did not make existence itself meaningless. That possibility, that fragile, golden, impossible thread of what could be, was the antithesis of oblivion. Because oblivion said nothing matters, and possibility said everything could. Morath, the child, the man, the monster, the oblivion, wept, not with the rage that had fueled his transformation, with the grief he had never been allowed to feel, the grief that a 12-year-old boy had been carrying alone for 40 years. And as the grief flowed, as the pain was finally expressed instead of consumed, the oblivion began to slow. Morath let go. The grief released. The rage dissolved. The fragment of consciousness faded into something like peace. But the oblivion continued, slower, weaker, but continuing, because the chain reaction had grown beyond its origin. Like a fire that has consumed enough forest to generate its own wind, the oblivion was now self-sustaining. No consciousness driving it, no purpose fueling it, just entropy, the natural tendency of everything to become nothing. And entropy doesn't stop because you ask nicely. Kaito pushed, with everything he had. Every ounce of creative void energy, every shred of potential, every possibility. It wasn't enough. The oblivion was too large, too established, too far gone. He could slow it, he could fight it, he could not stop it, unless... He understood. The oblivion was self-sustaining entropy, the tendency of nothing to create more nothing. The only thing that could counteract it wasn't creation pushed from outside. It was creation seeded inside, a permanent source of potential planted at the heart of nothingness, something that would continuously generate possibility, forever counteracting the oblivion's expansion, transforming nothing into something, absence into presence, ending into beginning, forever. A seed of infinite creation, his power, his void, his identity, all of it, planted here, given to the nothingness, not as a weapon, not as a sacrifice, as a gift. The gift of potential, the gift of possibility, the gift of what could be placed at the heart of what isn't. It would save everything, and it would cost him everything. He would lose it all. Every ounce of power, every thread of the void, every trace of the sovereign transformation. He would become what he was before the awakening. Kaito Yamamoto, F rank, no abilities detected, the weakest, the zero, and the ice crystal against his chest pulsed with cold. I'll be here to remind you who you are. Who was he? Not the void sovereign, not the creator, not the being who made gods kneel. He was the boy who trained in the rain when no one believed in him. He was the boy who refused to quit when the world said he should. He was the boy who earned everything he had through suffering, patience, and an unbreakable will. And that boy didn't need power. He never had. Kaito gave everything, not reluctantly, not tragically, not with the bitter acceptance of sacrifice, with the same stubbornness that had defined his entire life. He had earned this power through suffering, through patience, through refusing to break. And now he spent it the same way he'd earned it, with purpose. The oblivion transformed, not destroyed, because you cannot destroy nothing, not healed, because it was never wounded. Given purpose, the infinite absence became an infinite possibility, a space between spaces, a realm of pure potential, the bridge that the void was always meant to be. And at the center of it, the seed, Kaito's power, burning, creating, endlessly generating possibility where there had been none, forever. Outside, they felt it, the oblivion transforming, reality restoring, the crisis ending, and then the corridor collapsed. And Kaito's energy signature, the dark and gold sovereign power that they had tracked, followed, depended on, vanished. It started as a flicker. Not the dramatic eruption of sovereign power, not the cosmic entrance of a being who had reshaped reality. Just a warmth, a presence, something impossibly, stubbornly, characteristically alive existing in a space where it shouldn't be able to. He walked out of the nothingness. Not as the void sovereign, not as the creator, not as the being who had made gods kneel and reality tremble. As Kaito Yamamoto, 17 years old, no powers, no rank, no abilities detected. And the most extraordinary person who had ever lived. They held each other, gods watched, the world breathed. And in the quiet, in the beautiful, earned, fought-for quiet, a boy with no power was surrounded by people who loved him. Not for what he could do, for who he was. It was, in every way that mattered, enough. The world didn't go back to normal. It went forward. The realm of potential, born from Kaito's sacrifice, became a permanent part of existence. A bridge between what is and what could be. A place where possibility itself lived and breathed. Its effects rippled through everything. Plants grew faster, wounds healed cleaner. People felt, without knowing why, that tomorrow could be better than today. The void's hunger, satisfied at last, became the universe's hope. The gods changed, not because they were forced to, because a 17-year-old boy had shown them what divinity was supposed to look like. Not thrones and power and distant judgment, service, sacrifice, connection. They walked among mortals for the first time since creation and discovered that the world they had made was far more beautiful from the ground than from the sky. Tensho Academy abolished the ranking system. No more levels, no more classifications, no more children being told they were worthless because of a number assigned at birth. The academy that had called Kaito a zero now taught every student that their potential was unlimited. It was, perhaps, the quietest revolution the world had ever seen. Kazuki Yamamoto lived out his remaining years in peace, not imprisoned, not punished, not sealed away. He tended a garden, he told stories, he watched sunsets with a grandson he never thought he'd meet. The gods debated what to do with him for months. Kaito's answer was simple. He's been in prison for 10,000 years. I think he's served his time. No one argued. Ren never got his divine blessing back. He didn't need it. The former prodigy became the Academy's most beloved teacher, not because of power, because of the scar on his shoulder from a corrupted god's spear and the stories of a boy who taught him what true strength meant. He was, in every way, the person Kaito always knew he could be. Kaito Yamamoto returned to Tensho Academy, not as a sovereign, not as a legend. As a student, he had no powers, no rank, no abilities. And for the first time in his life, that was perfectly fine. Because he had learned something that power could never teach. That being extraordinary isn't about what you can do, It's about what you're willing to give. And he had given everything and gained everything that mattered. He gave away the void, every last drop. But the thing about infinite potential is that even the smallest seed can grow. And so ends the story of Kaito Yamamoto, the boy who was called worthless, who awakened a power that terrified gods, who was hunted, tested, betrayed, broken, who denied destiny, defied divinity, and rewrote the laws of existence, and who, in the end, chose to give it all away to save a world that had never been kind to him. Not because the world deserved it, but because he did. Thank you for watching every part of this journey, for caring about Kaito, for rooting for him when no one else would, for being here at the end. This series, every battle, every sacrifice, every moment, was made for you. If it meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear that being called worthless doesn't make it true. And remember, the power that is earned is always stronger. But the power that is given away with love, that's the power that changes everything. Until next time.